Test day 2 is well underway. Welcome back once again, Louis Suddaby and Jack Appleyard, ready to bring you the very latest from day 2 here at the Sepang Test. And I guess we need to start with some events that kind of missed us at the end of day 1. If you're joining us on After the Flag yesterday, of course, we were bringing you the latest information and reaction from what happened, where we told you that 2 riders were now going to miss the rest of the Sepang Test due to injury. No sooner had we gone off the air, Jack, that number grew to 3.
Yeah, unfortunately, Fabio Di Gianantonio, on the day that he returned from a lengthy absence after surgery on that injured shoulder, rather unfortunate events. After the checkered flag during the practice start session, in between turns 4 and 5, Fabio pulled a wheelie, and then as the front end came down with the brakes having lost some temperature, he touched them, the front end folded, he went down and he's broken his collarbone and he's currently en route back to Europe. He's going to miss the remainder of this test. He's going to miss the entirety of the Buriram test. But the Pertamina Enduro VR46 squad, 90% confident that we will see him at the opening round of the year. But wow, nobody will be more frustrated than Fabio Di Gianantonio himself to have made a mistake like that after the checkered flag, after a very successful return to MotoGP action as well. I mean, there's not much that we can add to it. It's a mistake that you shouldn't make, but unfortunately, these things can happen in life. And for Digia, it just seems that that misfortune from the end of last year has carried through to the start of this year.
Yeah, ultimately, anytime you're on these bikes, there is risk attached to it. A very peculiar incident, but one that Fabio Di Gianantonio for sure will be regretful of. You can see just around us the clouds starting to roll in here in Sepang. We're a little bit nervous here as we're stood outside in the paddock. I feel like there might be a frenzy of activity out on circuit soon, Jack, with the potential for rain coming in the next hour or 2.
Yeah, lunchtime has pretty much just finished with the chorus of a MotoGP machine exiting pit lane, and there's still a lot of work to be done for a lot of teams, none more so than a man we're going to speak to in a second, the new technical director down at Aprilia, Fabiano Sterlachini. I mean, what a entrance back into life as a MotoGP technical director it has been for Fabiano. I'm sure came you wanted Jorge to do, everything you wanted Marco to do, and Fabiano inside 14 laps. I imagine that plan changed yesterday.
Yeah, absolutely. Unfortunately, you can imagine that is a big shame that we didn't have the opportunity to what is our path, no? To ramp up, building the confidence between the team, rider and bike altogether. Unfortunately, we had this issue that can happen in our world.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm sure you're giving your best to Jorge to hopefully return for the Buriram test in, around a week's time. Welcome to Aprilia. Of course, this is the first official activity on top of the Barcelona test.
Yeah.
You come from, your history was previously with Ducati, then most recently with KTM. So you come to Aprilia with a lot of knowledge of their MotoGP rivals. How have you found the Noali factory so far, and how close do you think they are to being there challenging at the front every weekend?
You know, to reply to the last question is always difficult, no? Because
that's why I ask it.
No, for sure we are absolutely in the good situation because the human asset of the company is a super high level. For sure, the experience in road racing competition come from a long time, and that is something that you can perceive. To be honest, there is some work to be done. We are discovering also based on my experience that there is margin to improve some aspect. And this is something that in the next days, for sure we will perform several tests. We did already something with Marco. Now we are carrying on the testing in a replacement of Jorge with Salvadori, exactly because we have a lot of material. That is something that we are bringing from the company, but also we are building here, like the electronic evolution.
Of course, a lot of talk has been around Jorge Martin, quite understandably, as the reigning world champion. But what has been the experience so far working with Marco? Of course, a factory rider for the first time himself, an Italian, of course, joining an Italian team. How is the atmosphere with Marco, and how has his work gone so far?
Yeah, let me say that is really good. And to be honest, from outside, I had the impression that Marco was a kind of a super talent rider, but not so technical. It has been a sort of a good surprise, no? Because the job that we are doing, setting the bike in terms of hardware items, It's quite interesting way to work because it's quite calm. Set the bike in the way that we can be repeatable to test just the item and to have the data in the statistic way with a lot of consistency.
And practically, how does the plan change? Having lost Jorge yesterday, of course, you brought Lorenzo Savadori in from today to pick up some of the slack, but you also lost Raul Fernandez yesterday, who was the only rider with prior Aprilia experience of the four that you've got racing this year. So how have you moved the program around to try and make up for the absence of two riders?
Let me say that apart seeking the performance, this is one of the problem, the difficult part of our job that we have to readapt considering the boundary condition. Yeah, for sure now we are exploiting the presence of Salvador here, but for sure we are adapting basically day by day based on the result of the test items and also the situation. For the moment it looks everything stable, so hopefully that the plan that we have in terms of the slot for the item we will, let me say, respected.
And how much are Aprilia's eyes on this that's up ahead of us? Is the program going to be accelerated somewhat now?
No, you know, at the end of the day, you have to say that probably yesterday was not the typical Sepang. Now is the typical Sepang in terms of how much is warm and also the weather that probably some rain is coming. But we have to try to stay focused without resetting too much due to the boundary condition. Otherwise, you are making more mess than more clean, no? So
we were just speaking to Marco Bezzecchi then up in the media centre, and he was giving us a nice debrief of his first day and a half with Aprilia. One of the key things he said with regards to the engine, which you guys have just been speaking about, is he feels that there is power there. The engine, he thought, it was very impressive, the amount of power. The big issue with the electronics, something that you mentioned, is trying to fully maximise that power, trying to get that power on the ground. We know that that's where Ducati have potentially just got that little step on everyone else. Is that a key area that you're trying to unlock?
yeah, let me say, for sure, the development and evolution of the bike is something that you have to touch basically all the point, no? To try, as we say, technically stretch the cover, no? But yeah, for sure, the stability of the bike is one of the crucial point because normally allow the riders to push the bike to the limit to exploit all the potential of the rear tire, especially. So for sure, we have to consider that the engine is like the black box, and the engine, it will deliver the power that the electronic requests. No? So this is an important point before to change any configuration of the engine.
We've seen Marco doing practice start after practice start as well. I think it was clear to everyone over the past couple of years, one of the areas where the Aprilia can improve is off the line with that start device. Do you have a new one that you've introduced for this season? And do you feel it is a step to be able to match the Ducatis and the KTMs off the line?
Yeah, for sure. We are focusing with the part of the company, obviously, delegating different job for different area, different tasks. For sure, the starting is an important point because we saw, especially in the new generation of the MotoGP, with the new tire, with aerodynamics, with the power, if you start in the back, you can have normally difficult race. You have to have the difficult race due to the overheating of the front tire. So starting in the front sometimes is the key point for good performance. So for sure, we are focusing quite a lot to find something to improve our performance in starting.
This is only day 3 officially of your tenure with Aprilia, but you started work, I imagine, a bit before that. How much of this 2025 RSGP has a Fabiano Sterlicchini fingerprint on it, can we say?
Yeah, to be honest, is my approach that normally, for me, is haggling somehow to say that there is the footprint or the fingerprint, no? Because it's like that is personal. Okay. At the end, the company is a big number of people because we are speaking more than 150 people, and it's the contribution of all the people that they are working in the project. For sure, let me say, I jump immediately to try to understand from all the people, the analysis, the problem that we have, checking together. So, in somehow, I'm holding the steering wheel and I try to move in the direction that I believe is correct since the beginning because you don't have, let me say, time to be wasted, no?
Well, Fabiano, you've got a lot of work to do, so we'll let you get back to it. Thanks very much for joining us, and we'll wish you the best of luck for the rest of the test.
Thank you very much. We need it.
Yeah, good luck, good luck. Great to be able to be joined by Fabiano. We're going to head this way and talk about your rivals, so don't listen into this part, because we might be a bit more positive about, in particular, Ducati, who, Lewis, looking at the timesheets, it does seem as though we thought it was going to be the case coming into this opening test of the year, but unsurprisingly, they're still the people to beat.
Yeah, as we came on air, Frankie Morbidelli leads the way, of course. He stayed on the same bike. Moved that bike into a different garage, of course, now from Pramac to VR46. Fabio Quartararo also continuing to set some eye-catching lap times, but certainly from a Ducati point of view, more interest, I guess, is in what's going on in that factory garage. We spoke yesterday about the fact that they were certainly looking at more black and white items before they go into slightly more subtle changes that they want to make to the bike. So how has their program moved on today?
Yeah, well, thought his comments were very, very interesting, saying that now I understand why Ducati has the best bike on the grid, because halfway through the day, even going into the last couple of hours, with Mark and Pecco and all of the team talking, working as one, and they were able to find a path, find a direction, which they're both settled with at the conclusion of day one. And as a result, then now looks as though they're going to be moving on to looking at the 2025 chassis, which they have debuted before, firstly at the Misano test, 3/4 of the way through last year, and then again in Barcelona. And on both occasions, Pecco Bagnaia was extremely positive about that. So you do feel that, as we normally see, right now, the 2024 bikes are up there, they're fast, they're competitive, they can put lap times in for fun because they've got the data. It's the most complete motorcycle there is out there at the moment. It's going to take these brand new bikes some time to be able to find that completion that the 24 bike has, but it looks as though that 25 is starting to be pieced together, and no surprise, I think they're going to go into the year as favourites.
Yeah, it's not unheard of to go into a new season with the year-old bike having an advantage over the new bike. Think back to 2023. And of course, 2022, when Enea Bastianini was strong on the year-old bike. In 2023, Marco Bezzecchi did exactly the same thing. KTM, we were having a close look at them this morning. Of course, they told us before the test began that they had so many new parts to work through. Certainly in terms of the rear tail unit on the bike, looking at the factory team, a clear direction has been found.
Yeah, that brand new tail unit, a big chunky tail unit, potentially with a mass dampener in the back of it to try and adjust the balance, to try and, just as we're speaking about with Fabiano, try and make the more benefit of that rear tyre to be able to get better drive out of the corners. That is now on every single one of the factory machines, 2 for Pedro Acosta and 2 for Brad Binder. I'm sure as we go throughout the test, that'll potentially make its way across towards the Tech 3 squad as well. But it has been a complicated day, in particular for Pedro Acosta. On his first flying lap of the day, crashed out at turn 5. We haven't seen it, but I imagine it was a big one as well, because even now at lunchtime, the bike that he crashed on still hasn't reappeared back into his garage. So clearly it's either in a couple of pieces or in a bit of a mess in the back of the box. Then, as he wanted to go out on his number 2 bike, they had a technical issue there, which means that Pedro Acosta didn't set a single lap inside the opening 2 hours of today. That has obviously resulted in an adjusted plan for him for the remainder of the day. Could get worse if the rain is about to fall as well.
Yeah, meanwhile, down at Tech 3, of course, Maverick Vinales, as he so often is, was beaming and buzzing with life after day 1 of the test yesterday. And Enea Bastianini we saw trying to experiment with different seating positions on the bike, trying to get himself as comfortable ergonomically as possible. Quite a common thing to see when a rider switches from one manufacturer to another.
Yeah, absolutely. But I have to say, of all of the riders that have moved from one factory to another, right now, Enea Bastianini looks to be the most lost. He came to speak to us in the broadcaster set yesterday with a puzzled look on his face. It's been a struggle so far. We're only 2 days into it, a lot of time still to pass, but right now, Enea Bastianini is certainly feeling the less adapted, if that's a word, of all of the riders that have moved across to new factories at this current moment. But as a couple of members from Tech 3 said earlier, and people that know him pretty well from Ducati previously as well, Enea is a feeling kind of rider. He has to have everything 100%. He's got to feel at one with the bike before he's then able to push to his maximum. And that's potentially what we've seen over the past couple of years. When everything's right, when everything's in line, just like here in 2023, nobody can beat him. But it's making sure that happens on a more regular basis.
Speaking of riders who've moved one manufacturer to another, we've seen the first sign of a sprint simulation today. It came from Jack Miller, who of course has switched across to the Pramac Yamaha. It compared pretty similarly to the sprint he did here on the KTM back in October. Slower though by a few seconds than Fabio Quartararo's sprint, the best Yamaha sprint that we saw last year. But from a Yamaha point of view, Fabio Quartararo again is up inside the top 3. He's down to a low 157 now. At what point do we give ourselves permission to be maybe not excited, but optimistic that a step has been made at Yamaha?
Right now, I have to say I was a bit cautious yesterday, knowing that they'd had 3 days experience on everyone else to get set up, but they've gone out, they've taken another step in terms of lap times, and it's not just me. A couple of people from walking up and down in pit lane, the first thing that they're all saying is, Yamaha are not doing too bad, are they?
Because they're all quick.
4 riders inside the top 10 at this current moment. You know me, I like big statements, but I don't think it's too strong of a statement to say that potentially Yamaha have bridged that gap just to be on the tail of that battle with Aprilia and KTM. They're not at the level of Ducati. I don't think anyone is at the level of Ducati right now, but I think we can definitely say if further progress is to be made, which it can do throughout the year, of course, with concessions as well, I think Yamaha are just on the tail end of Aprilia and KTM now. They're breathing down their necks. They've made a step, a noticeable step as well. The Pramac guys in particular, who had the opportunity to try the 24 bike in Barcelona and weren't particularly happy, are on the charge. Look out for them in 25.
Perhaps an acid test might come for Yamaha tomorrow. We're expecting some very fast lap times to come in tomorrow morning. Generally, the morning of the final day in those cooler conditions is when you see some time attacks coming in. And of course, that was an area where Yamaha were weak last year, particularly Fabio Quartararo. When they put the new soft tyre in for qualifying, he just could not make that step forward in performance. And finally, Honda, we spoke to their riders yesterday. Definitely optimism there. Joan Mir said it was the best testing day he'd ever had with Honda. So positivity, but some of their old weaknesses do still persist. Yeah,
they're trying a Honda. They are trying. There's 6 bikes across the factory box, 3 for Joan Mir, 3 for Luca Marini, and there's the new seat unit with the old aero, the new aero with the old seat unit, then it's matched together. I'm sure there's new chassis thrown in there, a new engine as well, which you say they were going to be testing. It is mix and match, but as we spoke about yesterday, someone that I was speaking to said it was obvious that Yamaha have a long-term plan, have a roadmap. They said it doesn't look to be the same at Honda. It's a little bit throw everything at it and just hope that something comes together. We've been speaking about so often. Simon Crafar, when he was with us, was constantly saying the new engine. They need a new engine. They need a different character to be able to maximise and be closer to the guys. That's still is yet to come, and until they get that, you just feel that they're going to be chasing their own tail, and with how many different bikes they've got and different configurations, it looks to be the same old story for Honda. I'm not as optimistic about them as I am for Yamaha.
No, and of course, when I asked Joan Mir about the issues they've been having with rear grip in previous years, he said, yeah, rear grip is still our weakness. Sean Zarco said, hey, that is the DNA of the current Honda, and they also feel they are too slow on the straights. Those two facts are very much connected because they're slow out of corners and slow when they get to the next one, so yeah, it's not a good combination.
Like a football team that can't score goals and concede too many goals. Not really a combination that you want.
No, Honda still very much on their way up, and of course, way too early at this stage for Romano Albiciano really to have had any kind of fingerprint on that Honda. Both he and Aleix Espargaro, you sure, are coming up with a plan to try and lift them up the order. Well, make sure you're with us in a couple of hours' time, 5:30 local time, 30 minutes before the checkered flag comes out. For After the Flag, we will have live reaction from both pit lane and from up in the studio. And of course, Jack, you'll be providing me with your full undivided attention for that one.
Yeah, as ever. For those of you that thought that I was switched off yesterday, don't worry, I'll be switched on today. We're not going to chat to Gino Borsoi, but Gino, just very quickly, thumbs up if you're having a good day, thumbs down if it's a bad day so far. 2 thumbs up. Wow, there we go. That's all we need. A wonderful day, as always. Well, there we go. Getting the exclusives I've ever on MotoGP.com. Prima Pramac enjoying a wonderful day so far. Let's hope it continues like that.
And on that note of Yamaha optimism, we'll bid you farewell. See you in a couple of hours for After the Flight.